All right, everyone, it's recording.
Okay, it's 7:04 PM, November 21st, 2023, City Hall, 140 Main Street, Torrington, Connecticut. Time to call the City of Torrington Inland Wetlands Commission to order. Serving on the commission this evening are members Christine Altman, Adrian Barb, Joe Paganini, Randall Stelma, Stephen Thompson, myself, Jay Bate. Also present is Nate Nardi Cyrus, Inland Wetlands Enforcement Officer and Assistant City Planner. So next, I guess we'll do, let's see, we need to put on the agenda the site walk. So I guess, can I have a motion to add that to?
I move that we add this site walk to the agenda.
And there's one other thing to add to the agenda too.
Yeah, and then the
We
other
can do
thing,
them separately. We'll do this one
Okay.
first, okay?
you
I have a
you
second?
do it separately.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that's on the agenda. And what's the second one?
The second one is a new business permit transfer for 2315 Torringford West Street.
I have a motion for that.
I move that we have a permit transfer for two.
No, just
3-1.
add it to the agenda.
Oh.
Not on the.
I
agenda.
move that we add the permit transfer for 2315. What's this, Torringford?
Torringford West, yeah.
Torringford West Street to the agenda.
Have a second?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Okay, so now minutes for approval for the October 24th, 2023 meeting. That motion to accept.
Yeah, we'll accept them.
Have a second?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. And now we need a motion to accept the site walk, which was, I don't know what the date was on that.
November 14th.
November 14th, 2023.
I move that we accept the minutes. Is it minutes or just the, we didn't really have
I'm
minutes.
sorry, it's the 16th.
Okay,
And I took minutes afterwards
Yeah.
because it's a meeting, yeah.
I move that we accept the November 16th minutes for the site walk.
okay. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. So now on to old business. Applicant Mike Perugini, location 811 Torringford Street, assessor map 144, block 002, lot 002. Activity construction of house within upland regulated area.
Still, no word from Mr. Perugini. He requested and was granted a 65-day extension because he completed the amount of time he could legally proceed. So that extension goes to the December meeting. So if he doesn't provide an updated site plan with the comments from our city engineer for you all to make a decision on, then the application has to be denied without prejudice and he has to resubmit if he wants to.
Okay, so we just need to have a motion to table this.
I move that we table the application for Mike Perugini, 811 Torringford Street, assessor map 144, block 002, lot 002 for construction of house within upland regulated area.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, next, applicant Barat and Esteem Arjo. Location 207 Silverbrook Lane, assessor map 219/001/197. Activity restoration to remediate grading and filling of mapped wetlands within upland regulated area.
So at the last meeting, the application was accepted and it was deemed not to be a significant activity. So during this meeting, the record has to be reviewed to make sure all relevant information is received. If it is complete, you have to determine whether or not it meets section 10 of the regulations for the criteria for decision and then make a motion to accept that where you outline conditions. I will say in the memo that I produced dated November 20, I suggested the conditions, following conditions, in addition to our standard conditions. The survey wetland boundaries shall be posted with metal markers with the design and spacing to be approved by City of Torrington Wetlands Enforcement Officer. And plant species specified in restoration may be modified with the approval of City of Torrington Wetlands Enforcement Officer. And I'll show everyone what that site looked like again, just for a reminder. This is kind of the cleaner version. You can see there's a fence, newly erected fence on the property. The wetlands are behind that fence. There was fill of approximately 400, 500 square feet of fill placed in there, and the applicant agreed to remove that, grade the transition, and then seed it out with the acceptable seed mix. And at the last meeting, we discussed that he would have to remove a portion of the fence, likely to be able to, make a reasonable transition on that site. So that's where we are, and those are my suggested conditions. Sorry, I'll leave it up for a little while.
So is he okay with those conditions or what? We gonna,
Well, it would be up to you whether or not to impose them or not. I mean, I mentioned them to him and he seemed willing to do, whatever he had to do in that case. We already talked about seed mixes and we both agreed on one that would,
right,
had sufficient native seeds that could tolerate wetland conditions. And yeah, I'm just looking at, this is the map provided.
okay.
And it,
Is there a pitch to that property?
it's very, yes, there is. There is. I was gonna say it's very shallow, but I think it is pretty, it starts somewhat steep. It's not like greater than 15% or anything like
Okay.
that. But then when it kind of levels off and then there's a little bit of fill at the bottom. I'm sure when the subdivision was put in and the house was placed there was fill kind of pushed all the way up again to the edge of the wetlands and it kind of drops off from there.
Okay.
So we're just looking to approve this now or disapprove? with-
Yeah, just to grant the permit.
Okay.
Well, we're granting, and then we're talking about the conditions
Yeah,
regarding
with
like
the
the,
conditions.
the map and the seating.
The markers.
Yeah, the suggested ones were the metal posting with the metal markers and then,
So 12 and 13 from the
yes,
memo?
yeah.
And all the other ones are standard?
yes.
Okay, so I move that we grant a permit to Barat Arjo of 207 Silverbrook Lane for restoration of wetlands, filling and grading and fence construction within the upland review area with the following conditions. That the surveyed wetland boundary shall be posted with metal markers with the design and spacing to be approved by the City of Torrington Wetlands Enforcement Officer. And that plant species specified in the restoration may be modified with approval of the City of Torrington Wetlands Enforcement Officer.
Can I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Just a reminder, because I made a note to myself. Try to
Yeah.
remember to speak into the mic.
Okay.
Am I not speaking?
I get comments from Lona, when she's transcribed the minutes, so.
Okay.
Okay, next is applicant James Mazzarelli, location 137 Babbling Brook Road, assessor map 221, block 003, lot 054. Activity piping of 130 feet of watercourse, creation of armored ponds before and after pipe stream, and backfilling of adjacent wetlands to extend lawn. Okay, on this one, this was the site walk. And I think we never determined whether it was a significant activity. But if in fact we decide that he doesn't have to take the pipe out, then I guess that would lessen it being a significant activity. So is his guy isn't on?
Yeah, he said he would be at the site visit, right? We were talking to him
Yeah.
and said it would
Maybe we
be
forgot about
next
it.
Tuesday. Yeah, I don't have his personal contact information.
But anyway, this is what I was thinking, and you guys can state what you think after. What I was thinking is, I can't see removing the 130 foot of piping. That's just gonna cause more disturbance than it already has.
Mhm.
So I don't really feel it's a significant activity. And as far as putting the, reseeding, all that's good. I'd like to see, he said at the site that he would have some seeds for certain wetland shrubs that would grow. Though we couldn't really discuss what they were and how long they would take to grow because he wasn't able to talk about that. And the other thing that I'd like to see is, because of the way that it's just a chunk of property that's onto his regular lawn, he needs to have some sort of a fence or possibly stone boulders put across there. To delineate where he has to mow and where he can't mow, because he's so secluded down there. As soon as that pipe, if he puts up a fence even, as soon as the fence rots over, he's just gonna mow it like it always, as well as I do. But for the regulations, he should be restoring that property and putting some sort of a marker, fencing or rocks, or something to delineate the wetlands portion.
Can you
For the
use the
grass
metal,
portion.
can you use the metal markers for the property line?
I think he needs more than metal markers. He needs something to kind of keep him from mowing it. He could still go behind the fence, yeah, but at least there's a definite line. And it's not just like, if you have a stick in the ground that says wetland boundary, it's not too much of a deterrent to mow around that stick. If he has to go around the fence, it's a little bit more of a problem.
Like a fence or like a line of boulders? or-
Yeah, that's
He
what I
seems
was
to like
thinking.
boulders.
That's what I was thinking. Either one. And Nate, I think Nate said that he thought that the restoration guy was, whatever, I can't remember what his name is. George mentioned that in the meeting previously, so I don't think that would be a problem to him. But those are my thoughts. I don't know, you guys can.
What did George specifically mention? Fence or a gate or rocks, or what did he?
I don't know that he actually brought it up in this meeting. It may have been in conversation with me where
Okay.
he thought he was gonna run it by the property owner. So I'm not sure how amenable the property owner is to that. Not to say that that stops you from imposing that as a condition of the permit, but I'm just not sure.
Okay.
Can we do that? Like, can we be specific about the type of boundary?
Yeah, my opinion is that without taking the pipe out, it'll never recover to a wetlands. I can see avoiding it, but it's how much of a wetland do we want to restore? My fear is, I like the idea of the boulders. My fear is it's just going to be a cut lawn. I was concerned because I did hear that ryegrass was going to be presented there. I didn't hear anything about a seed.
No, it's
That
supposed to be a wetland mix.
Yeah, he did. So I think he was talking about annual rye for like the first season, like essentially
Okay.
that would establish on the site to
Okay.
control erosion.
All
Um,
So this seed mix though, unless it's not mowed, it'll have no chance of germinating. So the ground, I think, needs to be lowered because it's awful high back there. So I would foresee lowering the ground, then seeding it, and then putting in the,
But what he had said was, when we were walking back there, he did notice that at the very end, kind of near where that fire pit was, you can see that wasn't wetland soil. That was some sort of fill that he had in there.
right.
And he took whatever was on top of there out, but his consultant had mentioned that he was gonna have to take out more to get it down
Right.
to a wetland soil. So he was gonna be dropping that anyway.
It just needs to be shown on his map, on his layout. I think he needs to come back with a new
Yeah, he was supposed to,
site plan.
he knew he had to, this isn't an up-to-date drawing, is it? He
No,
was gonna update his drawing, and I guess that didn't happen yet
Okay.
either.
Do we want to table this until the next meeting?
unless you want to kind of propose things now so he can update the drawing for the next meeting. That's
Okay.
just, I mean, we can do whatever you want with that, but it's it may be worth debriefing on what everyone thinks about the site
Yeah.
visit, and I
Sure.
can present that to him.
And I didn't feel like the pipe was doing such a great job of draining the wetlands, honestly. It seemed, I mean, seemed to me like it was still both uphill of the pipe and below the pipe wet.
Yes.
So if we're gonna question about the lowering of the soil, so is this, if we do a boulder, if we ask him to put boulders there, is it more of a retaining wall to hold the
No, it
yellow
would
bed?
just be to market.
Barrier.
There's no, there might be a pitch going down a little bit, but it's fairly level.
Okay,
Except for one area where he had filled it and hadn't taken the fill out yet.
okay,
That was where it was a little high, and he had made notes, and he actually was pacing off how many feet was gonna have to be removed.
Gotcha.
When he was there.
Well, the whole thing is still higher than the wetlands on either side. The whole area that.
Yeah, it's gonna go down, it's gonna pitch down, like the
It's-
pipe is a little higher, so it's gonna go down into the wetland area.
Yeah, it'll go down.
Right.
But how much of the wetlands will move in will be only based upon the barrier. So is the.
It's
are we
not really a
proposing the
barrier, it's
Well,
just
no,
a
The
boulders,
delineation.
Random boulders,
Yeah.
delineate. But that delineation, we would put it near the pipe.
no, that would be on the wetlands. Where the,
Well,
when we stood on one area, we were looking across.
Yeah, I
The
remember we
pipe
looked
came down
across.
here, but he wasn't taking everything from the pipe back. It was a diagonal line from the back
Yeah.
of the pipe across.
if I remember though, it was probably within 20 feet of the pipe.
Well, if you look at your screen, it kind of shows that this is the plan that he provided. And you can see like where the pipe is underneath the lawn there. And I don't have, did he have scale
So
on
the
it?
area to the right of that pipe is where the demarcation needs to be, but I thought it was pretty close. Like 20 feet.
Yeah, that would be something that you'd have to clarify the location, because I'm not sure about maintaining the pipe. You know, if you allowed woody vegetation to grow around the pipe, you know, that could present problems if it's not maintained over the top of it. I mean, I like the idea of it. I just don't, yeah, that was a question that I was hoping that the consultant could answer, as to like what level of maintenance in his professional opinion, do you think this would require, and like, you know, versus restoration?
So maybe we should all be discussing where, when we're talking about this barrier, can you put the screen back up, Nate? Where that barrier is, because I was thinking, in my mind, it would be to the left of the pipe. I just heard to the right of the pipe. So
I think what he was talking about was, if he has it drawn in here, but what he was talking about when we were there, if you see that wetland flag A20, it's on the pond.
yep,
We were like standing there,
yep.
and he was pointing up to basically where I believe,
A8.
yeah, I think it was A8.
Yeah, that's what I
or
was
A13.
expecting
It was
too.
like one of, that's
Yep.
what he was kind of pointing at when we were there.
Okay. So basically from like right behind the pond
Yeah,
and back towards the woods
right,
is hands off.
right.
And we would want some kind of physical delineation
Right.
You know, are
for
you
that.
thinking boulders, you know, like the kind that are 4 feet?
Yeah, I was just talking a fairly good size. I wasn't thinking of even stacking them. I was thinking just.
Yeah, just
Random.
Put 'em
plop
here.
them down.
Yeah,
but make
or
sure
if they
they're-
wanted to put a split rail fence there, they could do that too.
But he does have access to rocks.
Well, I don't know if this is Jim Mazzarelli, who does all the rock stuff. I don't know if he's a relative or not.
I think it's the same guy.
No, it's
No,
not,
it isn't?
No.
Oh, okay.
because he's on Mountain Road. He's on the next part of the meeting agenda.
Yeah, but James and Jim,
They're two different
oh,
people.
are they must be relatives?
I don't know.
why don't we give them the option? The option, they can use split rail or rock.
Yeah. And I was just throwing out something.
Right, just something that says, don't mow past here.
Yeah, this is wetlands, don't.
You still concerned that if the split rail fence rots, that then it's
Yes.
just,
It probably will.
yeah.
just like he's
I
got,
mean, it can move
I
rocks
mean,
too.
yeah, he's got a backhoe, good sized backhoe there. If you wanted to move the rocks, he can move the
Right.
rocks around.
Do whatever he wants.
And he's
He
back in
wants
the
to.
back. I mean, it took him, what, 10 years to find out that he piped the stream.
Yeah.
so.
Two other suggestions I had were making sure, I'm looking at his conditions that he showed. Oh yeah, he had already included an inspection monitoring shall take place for 2 years after implementation with memo to town staff.
Right.
So that, I think that's important to make sure that there's progress on it and reported back to you with photos and,
Right.
report from him. And George Logan has done that on other projects for us as well. The other thought I had, which isn't really shown here, so this is the pond, the area upslope here, right? This area here,
Yeah,
that's all wetland, but it's all lawn.
right.
And there's no proposed restoration of that area, though it's kind of like a little cutout here. I know he probably wants to maintain around the pond. I don't know how important that is, keeping that basin, like keeping woody vegetation away from that basin. My guess would be it's not as important as the pipe itself, but I'd be interested to hear his opinion. But you can see this little pipe I'm pointing to here. That's just a piece of perforated drainage pipe. And that's probably part of the reason why there's not wetlands here, because it's kind of draining that. So it may be reasonable to request a restoration of this area as well.
Which, for that, I would think you'd take out that perforated pipe, right?
That would be my recommendation.
Do we know what the purpose of the perforated pipe is?
I would
Drain.
guess just to drain the area for just so that he can get around it and access it. There's another such, these 4-inch PVC on this pond here. So you could request that be restored as well. I just, this area is a little further away and I feel like more likely to get left alone. This area may come into conflict with what he wants to do on the property.
Yeah.
Not to say that you couldn't still have him do that, but the back area seems a little bit more like a
And he was gonna
no-brainer.
take the invasives out too.
Yeah, the other thing is like right behind that smaller pond. I guess that wasn't flagged wetlands. Well, wait, no, it was.
So the-
Yeah, so I'm just like kind of wondering why stop. I mean, do you really have to get all the way around that pond to maintain it? You can't have half, access from two sides.
Yeah, and that was a question I was hoping that his consultant could answer, like what, in his professional opinion,
Yeah.
reasonable maintenance of those structures are and what the consequences are if some of the stone in the basins get dislodged. Is it really a huge deal? I mean, maybe directly for the inlet, if the inlet becomes, if it becomes separated from the pipe somehow, that could do weird things drainage wise and create erosion issues. But yeah, I was hoping he could speak to that.
I would like to have the answer to that too, because I don't see why the upland restoration area number 1 has to stop at the line at which he has it stopping. Like, I feel like it should go right behind that pond. And I agree about the wetland that's delineated with the flags 825 through 28.
Yeah, was that lawn? I know back where we were standing behind 820, that wasn't lawn anymore. That just kind of dropped off into the woods, I thought.
No.
Around 820.
Behind- Yeah, like
Yeah, down here.
eight-
yeah.
Well, he
20?
kind of had like a wood pile or like a mulch, wood chip kind of
between 8, yeah, I'm not sure. I
pile
can't
over that,
remember.
in that area, but there was definitely lawn.
So these are pictures that that are in the record that I took from a prior site visit. This is the, I wish I could,
That's
the
a small
first one,
pond.
yeah, that's a small pond.
never mind. I don't want to, this is getting too complicated. Okay. Now I can't get away from this. Okay, let's shut this off and turn this back on again. Okay. I'm just gonna, okay, is that, okay. So this is this pond
Yep.
up here. So you can see the lawn area behind it that
Yep.
we're talking about. Just kind of a small area, but shown as maintaining that as grass, even though it's wetland soils. And then that's the inlet to the pipe from that basin.
Mhm.
This is that area that we were talking about with the the fire pit and the
Yeah, and where
fill,
that spool is, it was high. That was what he was talking about, removing all that.
all that, all of the material around the fire pit,
Yeah.
right, exactly.
And near that spool, that was the high point.
This is looking toward the boundary. This is that second basin. Did I not take a picture the other direction?
Yes, the lawn definitely goes behind the pipe.
Yeah, in this area, see this outlet pipe?
Yep.
That's that perforated PVC
Mhm.
coming up, but I didn't take a picture of the area back here. But anyway, that's just for some context.
Well,
Yeah, I remember.
is that
was
an
just
outlet
lawn.
or he's showing it doesn't go anywhere other than a few feet?
Which
It's not a drain pipe from the
It-
gutter up at the house, is it?
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's coming, like it's a roof leader or anything like that. And it was running.
Yeah. it's just
So, no, it actually had a pretty good flow to, at least this
Could
visit.
that be from a curtain drain though, from above the property?
Could be, could be. I don't,
Draining into the basin?
in this plan, you see they cut it off here and I
Yeah.
don't know if it's the end of the drain or
It's
if,
gotta be a curtain drain. I think this is just not, it's not complete,
yeah, it's possible.
for sure.
I mean, that would be,
Or coming from, it could be both. It could be coming from the water collection from the gutter system. That green pipe isn't perforated. That green pipe is solid.
it is. I don't know if there's anything behind it, but yeah.
Yeah.
We just don't know.
So maybe we ask about what
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
as well.
My guess would be that that's coming from from
The
house.
gutters at the
Or-
house?
Or a
The
curtain,
house
or a
is
curtain, or a
mostly
curtain
concrete.
drain that is up
Around the-
along, that is draining into the basin. From
Or
like
it
the,
was- Or it was more recent, put in when the barn was put on.
That's the other side. This is over here in this
So I
corner.
thought there was one on the other side.
There is, there's two, yeah,
two
and
barns.
what,
Are you saying when the
No,
barn was?
no, I was the other pipes I meant.
the ones to the north. There, so this balcony, that's to the new structure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this seems more
bet
like
you
it
that's a
could
curtain.
be the roof leaders or, there's no basement on this, so it wouldn't be a footing drain.
Yeah, I would
But,
think it's the roof leaders.
Were
Yeah,
those solid green pipes as well? Do you have pictures of those?
I don't know, I can look. I don't think I got a good side of the other
Yeah.
basin, no.
I'd bet that those are from curtain
Yeah.
drain there. Or from the water, the gutter
Or
system.
both.
Yeah.
That might have been another reason why you wanted to put that, the long pipe in. There was all that water coming down the hill. You
Yeah.
know, the pipe between the two ponds
Right.
and create the ponds.
I don't know much about Babbling Brook area there, but there's a lot of streets in just town that have just a lot of water coming out of the hill.
Mhm.
Coming up Newfield there, I see it all the time. After storms, it'll run down
Like
the street
seeps?
there for,
Seeps are coming out.
yeah. So those are probably from a curtain drain. Maybe his consultant can just clarify that.
Mhm.
Did they redo, so this new wetland boundary that's highlighted in light blue there, was that done by like a soil scientist for this specific?
Yeah, George Logan did this he did it last year when all this first started, as far as the violation went, and then, and I'll share, since that's also on the record, this map.
The overlay,
This,
the old
yeah, so you can
wetlands?
see the jagged one is the new survey.
Yep.
And then this other one is the historic survey. But that was done in 1989, and I know just from reviewing maps, I mean, the level of detail was a lot less at that time. You can kind of tell just by, I don't know, like it omitted this area here. I'm almost certain that there would be seeps and stuff on that hillside,
Mm.
like you're saying, if they did it today. But I don't know for sure. I just know that in the past, when we've had old mapping and we've gotten it redone,
Mhm.
new wetlands have emerged.
How old is that house? Like what's the age of the house related to when that pipe went in?
Which pipe?
The pipe that connects the two armored ponds?
The pipe that connected those, we are looking at aerial photography that was done between 10 and 15 years
And
ago.
the house is how old?
Probably went in the mid 90s.
Okay. I'm just wondering because like in some cases, like with this house, if you have all this soil that's wet, I'd be interested to see what the build plan was, the site plan was at the time. Because to maintain the structural integrity of that, to support the house, they may have had to do something to remove some of the water.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
I can definitely look at that, try to look at that. That would be a job for me, since I'm in the zoning office. Our retention policy is usually 10 years. So the chances of us having a zoning
not.
permit, is how we, regulate single family homes is pretty slim, but it's possible. So I'll, look for plot plan.
So, okay, so now I guess we just have to table this and
Yeah, do you want me to run over all the questions and stuff? Because I can transmit these to the consultant. I don't know if you know, I've been checking back to see if he's, I send him an email at the beginning of the meeting. My notes included showing area to return to grade on plan. So the way that he shared on his plan, the only areas he talked about lowering the grade was prior to planting in areas 1 and 2 shall be prepared by tilling the lawn to a depth of 6 to 8 inches. That's just because those areas already are mapped as wetlands, but it doesn't talk about what the grade is on the pile in the back or the areas of fill. So we'll talk to him about, I'll bring that up.
So
I'll tell-
he's talking about tilling them, but not removing fill. Do I
Well,
see
no,
anything where,
Originally, he didn't know that fill was there.
okay,
That small section of fill, which is in the corner.
Yeah.
Near the fire pit.
okay, so
That's
that
true.
has to be updated,
Yeah,
that gets
and, yeah,
removed.
he was, like I said, he was pasting it off and trying to make mental notes what he
Okay.
had to do to update the maps while we were there.
So this upland area that I'm circling here, and this area too, that would be tilled to a depth of 6 to 8 inches, but it's already mapped as wetland, at least this one. So it's not like they have to return it to the grade of the wetland. They're just trying to kill the
Right.
grass and reestablish the new vegetation. This area here, like I said, he didn't show any of that. Yeah, removal of piles, it's some fill. So it's pretty general. So he'd have to be more specific there, is what I'm getting.
And then when we say as tilled, that doesn't mean it's going to be raked. It's just furrowed.
Using a rototiller, so it would you'd till in
Yes,
the
but
material
We don't-
and
If it's raked, then it becomes a lawn. If it's flattened, we're just gonna leave it in rough grooved fashion. Is that correct?
the tiller could till it, break the sod up and till it into the
Yeah,
ground
so
and
I'm thinking
expose
more of a
mineral
furrow.
soil.
I'm thinking more
Well,
of a
he-
furrow
he's-
than a tiller.
Whatever they do to plant the seed mix that he has, he's gonna have to do. Because he's planting a seed mix
Right.
of wetlands, grasses and shrubs, so.
Well, that's where my understanding is.
I don't
it's a
think, I
furrow.
don't know if they're gonna.
Okay.
The
No,
benefit of
gonna
this
have
is
He
that,
has to make sure it grows, because we're gonna watch it for 2
R-
years.
right, that's the benefit, is that he's monitoring it. So if that method doesn't work, he's gonna have to report back why it didn't work and then propose something new and take it from there. It's nice to be able to have the consultants doing the management for us so that, we're not arguing with the property owner on this. Yeah, so, okay, so I have fill to be removed, inspect. From A20, from wetland flag A20 to wetland flag A8, used as the delineation, as rock or split rail, but specify. Question about restoring, area around the ponds, what his opinion is on
How much
whether-
access?
how much access is necessary, is any, like what's the consequences for leaving the whole area, in his professional opinion. Questions about drains into wetlands, just generally, he has to figure out where they are from, what's going on there. I have what needs maintenance already, and then I'm gonna look for the 137 Beverly Brook plot plan and see if I can try to figure out if there's any pre-existing piping that maybe they tied into or, you know, that they replaced, that's draining into the ponds right now. And that's what I had on here. So I don't know if there was any other.
You have the restoring, like from A25 to A28?
Yeah, I didn't write it that way, but like I'm gonna say that A25 to 29. Just that area around the pond. It kind of gets at the question of what level does he believe needs to be accessed by does the pond need to be maintained, and if so, how much is reasonable to provide?
Mm-hmm.
And so the legal, I guess, for those who haven't been in wetlands, so we're relying on the testimony of an expert, soil scientist and restoration ecologist. If he provides any information, any decision can't counter that without another expert opinion in the contrary. So he may say something like, oh, well, you need it to retain the pond because there'll be ecological impacts if you don't retain those basins. If you say, well, I don't know if that's true, that seems like I don't believe that, you can't base your decision on that. You'd have to get another expert to testify to the contrary and then cite that in your decision. So you may not want to do that for something like this. If you did want to do something, if you wanted to go that route ever, what would happen would be that we would retain
hire
our own specialist and charge the applicant. So that's how that process works when there's, you know, to get other opinions.
Okay, so we're basically where we were last week, last month, other than the discussion, so we're just gonna table this without accepting. So we don't have to say whether it's a significant activity.
So I move that we table the application for James Mazzarelli for 137 Babbling Brook Road for the piping of 130 foot of water course, creation of armored ponds before and after pipe stream, backfilling of adjacent wetlands to extend lawn and wetland restoration in the rear of the property.
A motion, can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay. Be nice to just let us know what the feedback is from.
Yeah, would you like me to share that? Well, I'll request that he does an updated drawing prior to the next meeting, and then I'll share that with everyone for review.
Right.
At a reason, but before the deadline, so that people have the weekend to review it.
Because basically my thought is that if he says, no, I'm not gonna do any of this, then we're back to the pipe. To make it a significant activity. So, okay. Next, new business, Jim Mazzarelli, location 516 Mountain Road, activity jurisdictional determination application. And there's nobody here from there.
Correct. So this is resulting from an enforcement action. I noticed extensive disturbance around a large pond visible from Mountain Road. Sent a notice that he'd be required to have wetland permits and come in. Most of that disturbance was at the outlet, where there's a dam that holds back water that ultimately drains into the Naugatuck River. He responded, came into the office, very upset, and indicated that he was doing work on the dam structure itself. Because of all the rain that we had, he said there was problems with the integrity of the dam, and he was trying to save Torrington. So we met with him on site. I contacted the State Department of Environmental Protection's Dam Safety Unit because I questioned whether or not we have jurisdiction to regulate dam safety issues essentially without that expertise. Dam Safety agreed and said that that is outside of inland wetlands jurisdiction, anything related to the head wall of the dam, anything immediately adjacent, and the dam downstream basically the dam area and then a kind of a halo around that. And so he had not registered that dam with the state, and so they're following up with enforcement to get him to register that. I told him for activity that didn't include that area that that he had to come to get a permit. Let me show you the map just so that I'm
Did he
not,
build the dam?
he did not build this dam. This structure this impoundment has existed for a long time. Historic photos show it going back to, I don't know if it went all the way back to 34, but it was there. It's old. It's been
But he
around.
did go deep with it.
He's altered it several times and he obtained permits from the inland wetlands to do so for dredging. I'm just trying to find. Uh,
Now, if it's outside of the inland wetlands jurisdiction and we approved something in past, is it kind of null and void now? We realize it's outside of our jurisdiction.
I'm sorry, please. Yeah, repeat that.
So you said it has to go to dam safety with deep Connecticut.
Mhm.
So anything previous that the commission has ruled on, wouldn't that then be outside of our jurisdiction to have ruled on that?
Yeah, so if you look at the picture here, this is the impoundment in question. This is Mountain Road here.
Okay.
This is the mapped wetlands that
Oh,
were
I know
submitted
exactly
for,
what this is. Yep.
for a prior application. So dam safety's jurisdiction, here's the dam itself. The outlet is right here.
Yep.
So their jurisdiction is in this area.
And he previously requested a permit to do an alteration to the dam?
No, the permit was for dredging of the rest of the pond.
Okay,
So the rest of the impoundment, that is all inland wetlands jurisdiction.
okay,
But when I sent the initial notice, the disturbance was only around the area of the dam with extending a little bit away from it enough so that I felt that we could, ask him to provide a permit where at least he showed soil and erosion controls to keep sediment from pouring into the pond because there is some grade over here. So he said that he would get the permit. There was a lot of back and forth. He eventually decided that he wasn't going to get the permit, and then wants to claim an agricultural exemption, because he is a farmer and he conducts farm operations outside of it. This property is enrolled in 490, 490A. I'm
490.
keep 490. I'm from New York, so there's a similar program. It's like 480 there, 480A. But it's a current use, tax abatement program for farmers. So he is currently enrolled, although his enrollment is out of date as of this time, and they have to update that. So he has claimed agricultural activity on the property, but there's been no real evidence of that actually happening provided. Other than, I mean, he is a farmer. He does produce hay on other properties for sure, and has done so this year. He was hauling hay tractors through Torrington this year, but not from this property.
on the 490, when you have to draw out and list the different areas and schedule what they are and for what type of agriculture they're for. So I attempted to do this once for my property to no avail. What does he have written down as this area for his production?
So I didn't put it on the record. I just received it from the assessor in the past couple of days. It's a very limited plan.
Okay, so it doesn't, because I know you have to specify, because there's different taxes for like an orchard or like, whatever the type of agricultural operation is for that piece. So whether it's a row crop or hay or orchard, so I'm just wondering what he has for this specific area.
He's primarily claiming hay for
Okay.
for most of the property. I do have, so he did receive an agricultural exemption from this commission in 2009. I'll put this up here. With this was his prior request for a jurisdictional determination, talking about, a loss of hay on other properties. And then, that he wants to start haying this property. And this was the map that was provided. I know this is a scan, it's not that great, but this is the pond. And then this area here is location for new pasture or hay lot. that's what he had been requesting in a prior application. And then put this, so this is summer of 2008. So that's like prior to him actually, doing the work he's proposing here. And, after by 2014, he had cleared this area. Yes, you can't tell from this photo, but he built another pond in mapped wetland areas up here without any additional jurisdictional determination or permits. And there appears to be no hay production on the property from what you can see from Mountain Road anyway.
Well, for him to put that pond in anyway, he has to get deep permission anyway, doesn't he?
Yeah, but he didn't get that from dam
That-
safety.
That wasn't anything to do with us. He would have to go to deep for that.
Well, he would have to get permission to dig the pond in the wetland.
Well, I mean, deep has to okay the dam, doesn't he?
Right, they would have to okay the dam, but wetlands would have to okay the pond. They would at least have to grant him a agricultural exemption for the pond if it was going to be used for agricultural purposes. So anyway,
Right.
there's kind of a long history of this, and most of it just involves, some plan being provided and not having it.
So it
really.
almost appears like he originally intended to, make new pasture for hay in that area, but instead dug a pond.
Yes.
So there's no hay being produced on that.
Not to my knowledge. And that's why was hopeful that he would be here to kind of talk about the agricultural operations on the property.
Mm.
What he did submit to us was this photo. Or this, not photo, but this drawing
Mm.
showing the pond, some hydrangeas he wants to plant along the path, and hayfield here. Which, I consider to be incomplete. It doesn't really show the extent of the disturbance that he's doing now. Sorry, I'm inundating you with photos, but then, so this was taken in spring of this year.
Mhm.
And then this is the level, this is the area around the pond you can see, or around the dam disturbed, but then he cleared this whole area. This is a very steep slope here with no S&E. I drove by the other day, the 14th of November, and he had his piece of equipment, his excavator in the pond, just kind of like tooling around. You can see it looks like he's been driving through here on this. Note this peninsula here, and then note earlier this year what it looked like.
Mm.
So I just question what the agricultural purpose is of all of this, and I don't think it's hay production. That's just my opinion.
Now, does he have any, water pumping stations, or is he using this pond for irrigation or for, watering the hayfield?
I have no idea.
Okay. It
So-
looks like I think this is to the southeast where the road curves around. To the right,
Oh,
bottom right.
oh, this here, right?
Yeah, so this area right here, this is where he's claiming there was a hayfield, or is he claiming that's where the hydrangeas are gonna
No,
go?
he's showing this as the kind of like to this area here over is the hay,
Okay,
and then the hydrangeas would be like on the side of that road.
because that bottom part looks like it's either being mowed or hayed, that portion down there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
When was this picture taken?
this was taken in September of this year.
Is that a result of the mass of the rain we had? I mean, could that be overflowed, the reason why that peninsula is
Eventually.
not, because it looks to me, even on the south part of that, it looks like the water's kind of overflowing the edges down there from the volume of water.
Yeah, there was so much flooding this year that the State Department of Agriculture, they had a special flooding grant response to help save some of the crops because there was so much water, which explains really, maybe the dam actually did need repair because,
I
Flooding.
absolutely believe that the dam had issues and
Mhm.
needed repair. And I agree that I think that their flooding had contributed to high water levels.
Mhm.
But the color of this pond right in here, and it's hard to tell with this
It's
overlay.
murky.
Like, look, this is what it looked like in the spring, and that's what it looks like now, regardless of what
Right.
caused the runoff. There's no soil and erosion controls around the pond.
I've driven by recently. I've seen this. I'm pretty familiar with it.
Yeah.
It's one of those things you look down at and kind of just look at for a bit.
Right. So, I mean, again, it's really just a question of understanding his agricultural intent.
Right.
He didn't even fill out the application. He's upset with me for turning him into the state. So he doesn't really want to talk to me. But yeah, so he just basically threw the application in the piece of paper at it and said,
For the original permit, he stated the reason why he wanted to go deeper This was several years ago, was because he wanted to put trout in there. So that was the original
Farmed fish.
reason for going deeper, but if you look at it, I mean, ever since I've been going by it, it's always muddy, so I don't think a trout would live in it anyway.
So, and that was, and he saw,
Catfish in there.
and that's a point as well. He sought a permit for the deepening of that pond. He didn't seek an exemption. He obtained a permit.
Right.
There's numerous violations noted on that. It was within jurisdiction of Army Corps and they sent him multiple violation notices. And we sent him violation notices. I didn't see any notes on what was done following those notices, but that he didn't seek an exemption for. And so regardless of if he's developing hayfields or not around the pond, he's not developing them in the pond.
So the secondary pond, is that the one on the bottom right?
That is the upper pond. Yeah. So this area was what was supposed to be hayfield,
Yeah.
in his prior plans.
So has he ever submitted any sort of plan for, fish farming?
No.
Legitimately, like carp or catfish or?
I don't think he claims to want to do that. It seemed like, I mean, Jay, I don't know if you remember.
When I was on, what I believe was that he wanted to go deeper with the pond. He was gonna stock it with trout. And it was just not, he wasn't gonna raise
personal or
trout. He was
for-
just gonna go fishing in it, or
Okay,
maybe he's got grandkids or whatever, right? It was gonna be a recreational
okay.
type of deal.
Because if it's commercial agriculture and he's trying to, produce fish
At
and
that
sell,
point,
right.
that was never mentioned that I can remember.
it's probably the route he needs
It's
to
not
go.
the right kind of water, like you said, for trout.
Well, now it's,
Well, there's other.
if it was
fish,
deeper,
carp or catfish.
yeah,
above
he
that.
wanted it to go deeper. The reason why he needed 10 feet, I think, for trout in the winter.
Right, they go deep enough, doesn't freeze.
That was the whole purpose of the original dredging.
So this secondary pond never got permitted. And
No.
it still isn't?
I never remember a permit for that secondary pond.
No, that pond was installed again, probably around 2012, 2013. Actually, no, the 2014 imagery I showed, they were digging it. So, and it shows up on the state wetlands maps as wetlands. There wasn't any actual, soil scientist survey done of it, but the state maps show that area as wetlands. It looks like it's kind of a swale and there's some wetness in here. It kind of, the original water course came down this way into this pond and then down here to the Naugatuck. That's at least my understanding. So my recommendation as staff would be to request more information prior to issuing a determination. Understanding that, he could be farming on the site, but we really have no idea. We really have very little knowledge as to what the extent of that is and where that, what that has to do with the pond.
Did he ever fill out an application, or he never did?
He said I could do it for him, but he didn't sign it. Or the thing with jurisdictional determinations, we don't really have a form application anyway. So we usually just ask that folks fill out a regular application. Did you remember, did we make you fill out an application or did you just present? I don't even remember.
I don't remember either.
Yeah, it's not the kind of thing that requires an application, so I wouldn't like hold that to him too much. It's just, just something to receive it
think I
for
had to
us
fill
to
something
review.
out.
You did have to fill
I
something
did
out?
have to fill something.
I mean, I would ordinarily think I would have them do it just so that we had exactly what they wanted to do in writing.
So it would be like a intended use application of like what his plan is?
Yeah, it would just be a filling out the wetlands permit as best you could, and then just talking about what your plans are and how that relates to the wetlands and what you're specifically seeking an exemption for.
Okay, so this has to get tabled anyway?
Well, yeah, you
Well, there's no permit to accept, because there really is no permit.
it's just a determination. So you would basically either determine it is, so you could pass a motion that,
We don't have enough info to
right,
make a
that you can't make that
determination.
determination without, and you require more information from the applicant, and then I can bring that to him. And part of this other issue is that when you're doing a jurisdictional determination, the applicant, according to our regulations, is supposed to be not operating because they're seeking that determination. Maybe they started and didn't know they needed one and they stopped operating until they get the you know, the determination from wetlands, but he's been operating the entire time through enforcement.
So what happens to this secondary pond that he put in?
I mean, that's up to, I mean,
That's still a violation.
in my opinion, you could legally, you could go after him for that, or you could go after him. You could request that he get an after the fact permit for it. And that he design it and that, or, I mean, and you could deny it because unless he can, because it was in likely wetland soils, you don't have to approve any pond unless it's an agricultural pond with that exemption. So, I mean, that would presumably be a part of the
The
conversation.
deep should be looking at that pond. There must be a
Yes.
dam on it.
Yes, they know about it.
Okay.
They know that there's 2 dams that, but he has not responded to their requests for registering the dams. So they actually sent me over a copy of the registration materials. If you want to look at them, just for curiosity, because they thought he might be at this meeting. But anyway, I have them if anyone wants to look at them.
All right, so basically we just need more information.
Yeah, so I move that we can't accept an as of right use for agricultural purchase purposes for the applicant Jim Mazzarelli of 516 Mountain Road for that jurisdictional determination without more information. And Nate, you have the list of the information that we require?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, my recommendation would be to have a farm plan or something that he would be, presumably submitting for his tax exemption, showing just the intended use of the property and how that conflicts with wetlands and where he would need, a jurisdictional determination for. So I would request a full farm plan.
Okay. Without more information, specifically a full farm plan.
Okay, can I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, next staff report, enforcement update.
I'm sorry, there's one other item that's just, is the permit transfer. I guess I'll provide this to you for promotion purposes. If you not know. Sorry.
So what is this? Okay, so this is,
So the permit is transferring from Crystal Gilbert.
okay, to non-Hoya.
Yep.
And so, or is that Hoynh, non-Hoyan? Okay. And do we need you just need a motion for the permit transfer?
Yeah, this is just, we can't do this kind of administrative step without, because it was it wasn't an agent permit, it was a commission permit. So the motion would be something like to transfer permit number,
WC 22-0401.
correct, from Crystal Gilbert, to,
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I move that we transfer wetland permit WC 22-0401 from Crystal Gilbert to non-Hoyne. Let's see, do we need the address?
it's 2315.
Okay, for 2315 Torringford West Street in Torrington, map 244, wow. Block 4, lot 26, for water course driveway crossing, grading, and construction of a new house in the upland area.
Okay, can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. All right, next, staff report, enforcement update.
Enforcement update, this, Mountain Road thing had been something that was large on that list. Everything else are kind of just minor. I will, in that part, I'll say, just as an opportunity to do this, we have a notice for the proposed 1.99 megawatt AV ground mounted solar photovoltaic facility located at the closed landfill on 105 Vista Drive in Torrington, addressed to Jay Bate as the chair, notifying the commission that this, because it's a 1.99 megawatt facility, is subject to siting council approval, and so is exempt from our regulatory authority. That's just a their mandatory notice. They had to notice conservation as well on that.
Next is agent determinations.
I have Torringford Street, Greenwoods Country Club. This was the result of enforcement action in their lower parking lot. If you're familiar with that, they hadn't installed any S&E and that lot hadn't been approved. So there was all this sediment and water washing out the bank and filling a wetland that was behind there. So we issued an agent permit for them to fix the site. Essentially, there wasn't a lot of damage. It hadn't gotten to the wetland yet, and it wasn't a mapped wetland. It was just apparent that's what it was. So they built up a stone berm around the perimeter and seemed to have addressed those erosion controls. So they sought a permit for that work. And then 2404 Newfield Road, front and back porch additions in the upland review area.
Did they submit permits for that?
Yeah, so that was, so they came in for their zoning permit, and it was within 100 feet, or it was within 75 feet of regulated wetlands. And so they had to get a permit just because they were within that regulated area. But it, in my assessment, there would be no major impacts. I didn't require any silt fencing or any erosion control measures. It's all pretty flat. So.
Okay, last is the CACIWC annual meeting, environmental conference update from Commissioner Joe Paganini.
Okay, welcome to do this. First of all, I'll pass down the brochure that accompanied the meeting. Accompanied the meeting, so you can take a look at it. The meeting encompassed several breakout sessions where experts talked about the various topics that were on the agenda. You were able to sign up for each of those or one of those sessions, A, B, C, or D. And I chose all the wetlands presentations. The keynote speaker, I was hoping to hear a lot of good information from the keynote speaker because he's a PhD from UConn professor. And he's also got a degree in he's an oceanographer. And he explained the subject of the rising sea or the rising ocean and the impact along the Connecticut shoreline. And he had graph after graph after graph of historical data that they munched through in great detail to basically create a hockey stick curve where it showed that, yes, the seawater is going to rise with the warming of the globe. And he was predicting about an inch, 1.2 inch height change over this period of some 30 years. So one of the things that he was talking about was, how do you deal with that? And difficult along the Connecticut shoreline because nobody wants a barrier in front of their beachfront home. So how do you come up with some other alternative? And he showed one major alternative that was being done that one town spent probably $100 million on in a program plan to divert water. And basically what it is you divert it away from the lowland where it's going to come and impact the most and move it towards an area where it won't be such a problem. So I don't know what you call that, but it's sort of like a tributary branching off to another location. Probably the more realistic way of doing things, because the walls won't be a sought after solution. I found the wetlands commissions, sections to be very, very helpful. And the most helpful of all was the legal people that were there. I don't know if you know these attorneys,
Yeah, I saw Mark Brantz was on there.
Yes.
A couple other people.
Janet Brooks and Mark Brantz. Very, very good speakers, very strong topics. And they were supplemented by Darcy Winter from the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. And I thought it was the highlight of the presentation, which is another attachment that was sent to you, is several Superior Court case summaries. I can say that probably 2/3 of the people that were there who were involved in inland wetlands commissions could relate to what those briefs were about, what those cases were about. And if you read through them, you'll see that they get quite in depth. And the last one we reviewed is kind of in the same category with the ponds. Very much so like some of the difficult enforcements that they had to go through. And so the rulings are there, so you can see what happened, and the progression there is that court is the last court in line, as I take it. When you cannot get anywhere from a rules standpoint, this is just from a violation standpoint with the rules, that case is then presented to the Superior Court. And I don't know if we ever had any go that far, Nate.
We've had cases
There has.
on the Superior Court, yeah.
So one Superior Court case filed against the board because the 3 board members present did not vote. 2 voted yes, 1 voted no. And what that entailed was that Superior Court looked upon that as not a quorum, number 1. Number 2 is that if the members were present, they had to either vote yes or no. They voted nothing. So the board lost the case and the plaintiff won.
It's my understanding in that case that they basically send it back to redo.
Yes, they send it back to redo,
Yeah.
but you've wasted
Oh,
time,
for
countless
sure.
time.
And attorney's fees.
Yep. All appeals against inland wetlands must be done at the time of the board decision, not later. And one of the things they emphasized,
You
excuse
mean
me,
at the time of the commission's decision?
yes,
Okay,
and it should be filed. Everyone should be filed. You don't file them until the end. You have to have a record that a decision was made. So it said here, the appeals against the inlet, excuse me, if you cannot prove a disposition within reasonable doubt, don't vote until you have more information. And I think we're kind of following that. It said, never use the word risk in a board decision. It is speculation unless registered by an expert opinion. Never try to defend or halt a public's right to know, but check and double check your facts before deciding to vote. So again, some of those cases that are involved in that Superior Court plan didn't involve doing such. Appellate courts and Supreme Courts bind all parties involved, commissions, consultants, contractors, applicants. Superior Court binds and just binds the directly involved parties. I didn't realize that. I thought it encompassed everything, but it doesn't. So a very important thing that not all those parties can participate in the Superior Court case. Zoning regulations regarding potential violations that are not viable under normal observation may require a search warrant. Get a judge to permit a right to a search a private property before attempting such. Very important legal point that a search warrant is a legal document. Anything else besides that is not. So you're taking a risk upon entering private property. They even told people, if you're getting permission, you need to have a document that shows you were granted permission. Verbal is not good enough. You should not participate in any property direct involvement, your presence on that property without written notification.
And all of our applications have,
Have that.
like, they have to sign, where they're basically signing to provide us
Yep.
permission to access.
Zoning regulations regarding potential violations not visible under normal observation may require a search warrant. Oh, you already said that. Only select one board member to be involved in a property search. The members should be the most trained on the staff. Good to have a consultant present for an independent view and report. Should not be the applicant's consultant. Consultants should visually look at the site and not documents. So what it's saying there is, if we were to do, say, Mountain Road, the suggestion is upon the initial view, because of the way it is, and from what I heard other people say, take an expert too. Have your expert there as well, because without your expert, it's your opinion. And if you're trained, fine. If you're not trained, not a good move. Because it's a first step where it could be brought into a legal
How are they
case.
defining search?
Search
Like,
means,
did they specifically say that site walks are property searches?
He's talking zoning.
No.
Right?
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
talking zoning.
This is violation related, so that's stuff that we're trained on for, like, if you've heard the term curtilage, but like the area that's expected to be private on a property versus what's visible from the public right away or from a neighbor's.
Okay.
So that's something that we deal with enforcement, and I'm the one primarily taking on enforcement
doing it.
responsibility. So it is, helpful rather than smaller municipalities that don't have, staff. This would be more pertinent to, because they're going to be doing these things on their own without
it.
any oversight.
all remediation plans following a board vote must be filed immediately into the land records. Failure to do so cause a filing of a lawsuit against the commission. Should the property being remediated be sold before remediation is done and there is no record for the new property owner, then the new property owner may have an issue. He can go after the city and he could go after the previous owner if the owner did not disclose that as well. Any lien on a property must be done by the Superior Court only. Investigating potential wetlands violation must be done very carefully to avoid legal issues. The suggestion is that a maximum of only 2 commission members visit an applicant's property for observation. They then report back. A consultant should go with the members if the members lack expertise. If the applicant's property owner does not allow permission to enter the property for observation, you can use adjacent property to observe. However, viewing must be by normal line of sight from an adjacent property. No ladders or climbing trees or looking over.
Or drones.
Or drones. Yeah, they have drones in there. The use of drones to observe the violations has not been decided within the courts. It is best to avoid it right now due to rights of privacy law. There's a new CT regulation addition for rules and regulations that all boards should have in possession. I don't know the date that was sent out, but I don't know if it's ready to come out. You would know.
Yeah.
It is advised that all commission members should not participate in political caucuses. Politics has no role within a commission. For very complex inland wetland applications, consider having a complex application fee that covers cases that will require consultants to assess. This has been allowed in the 2006 statute. Get the needed funds up front. Attached is a great document to assist in the process. It is called a template for order. So that's in your package. Many towns have this issue. We should create a document following this outline. Never give out board members' email address. Never talk in person in open sessions about anything but the benefits, but the business at hand, especially if the meeting is recorded. Suggested that 2 members be trained in DEP training programs. Always.
And I shared that with everyone. I don't know if everyone received that,
Mhm.
that training, and I just sent it to you, Steve, so. It's free and it's
Yep.
like online.
Always consider any alternative action to every application. Note that the impact on the environment alternatives of this environmental impacts, statutory and financial impacts. This should be standard practice with everyone. So he said, make sure you say, what's the environmental impact? What's the statutory aspect of it? And what's the financial aspect to the applicant when you're considering these? Public Act 12134 extended the approval permit to remain in effect for up to 14 years. Town attorney should annually send out changes to the inland wetlands and planning and zoning on a public website. And that's Connecticut rule changes. The third session I attended dealt with stormwater management. Wow, was this an interesting topic. And what it is that there's new laws potentially on the books and regulations that impact homeowners and businesses within the community. This is going to be a very interesting bureaucratic process impacting all property owners, including nonprofits. It is going to be a regulation nightmare, in my opinion. These are my opinions. And a new tax burden with a questionable impact, in my opinion. And what it says is to go to the extremes. If you're a business owner, they're going to take a look at the surface area of your parking lots. They're going to look at the surface area of your roofs. They're going to determine the amount of storm water that is released from your property into the storm management system. There will be a regulation set up that there could be a requirement, I think the way the state is going, that you have to reduce by 2% every year the amount of storm runoff that is entering the system. Now, that could be carried to the homeowner. Just like you have a sewer tax today, if you're using public sewers, you would have also a fee that would charge you, the homeowner, based on the surface area you have on your property, on your sidewalks, your driveway, and your roof. So you in turn would have to reduce your stormwater release by 2%. But that's the number that was being kicked around.
So I have a question about this. This says it's a permitting process. It's a new
Yes.
permitting process?
Well, there, it is going to be well, let's put it this way. It's community based.
Okay.
The community decides how they want to do it. And if you want to do, here's an example. Say it's your house and you want to put water absorbent blocks, bricks in your driveway. You need a permit to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever your solution is to come up with your reduction plan, you have to submit that to be approved. And then they would say, okay, you met your 2%. You don't get a tax. If you fail to do that, you're taxed.
This is measured based on,
Well, that's where the bureaucracy comes in.
Okay.
They're saying there's so much that could go on here that maybe one municipality can't handle this, and maybe you're going to combine multiple municipalities together and create a stormwater commission who services Litchfield County or Torrington, Winston, Winchester, Norfolk, and they will come out and be the determining factor. So you in turn will somehow pay for that in your tax.
I think we'll have a lot more ponds. People are gonna be digging more ponds.
Oh, I saw it as a thing for like inland wetlands problems. I could just see all of a sudden people starting to say, well, I got this area over here, and I'll just divert my stream over to that. And there was a lot of confusion. It's like I live in a community where our storm drains run into holding retention basins. And so does that mean we have to do something in our community to reduce the amount of water going in a retention basin? I mean, I don't know, but that eventually that water goes somewhere.
Right, so is the aim to keep it off the street and into like rain catchment, or is it into just diverting it elsewhere other than the storm
Well,
drain?
in the case of that, like take a municipal parking lot that drains into a storm drain, they have to do something about what storm water is going into that catch basin. So what are they gonna do?
Nothing.
Well, I mean, we have an issue right now with it we're trying to solve with the flooding that was happening throughout Torrington anyway, right?
Yeah.
We're already,
Yes.
It's
Look-
yeah, and I'm not sure if I'm thinking of the same thing that they were presenting on there, but I did hear of like a stormwater authority. Does that sound familiar?
Yes.
I mean, so this would be something that would be enabled. So it's not imposed, like the municipality
No.
would have to adopt it.
Yes,
Um,
and what it says here is legislation will involve M54 permitting. The project will involve 121 communities in CT. Torrington is included. The old process expired in 2022, and the new process is going to be reviewed was reviewed and implemented in 2023. Municipalities will be updated in the annual report and the public by 1/31/24. So somewhere between next year, first quarter, there should be some public notice going out to the community, according to this, if Torrington is participating.
mhm,
I mean, like right now, when you're doing permitting for new construction on a residential property, all the stormwater has to stay on that property.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, that's already happening.
It was my
So how do
understanding.
you, if you got 100% retention, how are you?
Well, it was my understanding that this is a tax, essentially a tax on impervious surface. So if a lot of pre-existing development is, doesn't have that kind of retention. And so there would be, and I don't know the details of this, so this is, I think Joe could have been more in-depth, but that money would go toward the authority and then would be spent on projects to like
To
mitigate.
mitigate stormwater damage.
Right,
Yes.
so it's funny because this actually came up we had that problem on the east side for flooding.
Right.
They were like, well, how do we get a plan to figure out how we're gonna manage this? And they're like, well, if you set up a stormwater authority, then that money could be used for trying to figure out stormwater management problems where they're creating more flooding in the city. Whereas now there's no funding source, so we kind of don't really know what to do with it.
And what they were saying is this affects municipalities, municipal properties. It even affects nonprofits. The only exemption is that it affects hospitals by some smaller percentage, but all are involved. So on the last page, the requirement is a plan to reduce stormwater entering collection by 2% per year a year. Only 11% of the 121 communities achieved this goal in 2022. Stormwater concerns evolve around flooding and aging infrastructures. There is a new stormwater manual coming out 3/31/24, and also a new effective date. There's a grace period until 9/30/24 to submit your community stormwater reduction plan. The issue involves the trend towards global warming and the more frequent rain in CT and the impact on water quality. Regulation calls for 1.3 inches of rain to be retained on site. This will be done by infiltrating into the soil or into other retention materials such as processed porous pavers. Requirement of homeowners is a 1% discount for stormwater per year.
Discount.
This is also includes businesses. Cities will tax homeowners on the amount of surface area on their property that receives rain, roofs, driveways, sidewalks. The tax will be a way for municipalities to hire personnel to collect, assess, and provide funds for all municipal properties to be modified to reduce runoff. In effect, a stormwater utility will be needed. This might be a regional agency to spread the cost. This will not be part of any property tax. It will stand alone like a sewer tax does. The stormwater usage tax is likely based universally or by individual properties. In my opinion, this is unnecessary law, but it might be regulated and we have no way of getting around it. But I can see more bad happening than good. But the people that sell porous pavers might be very interested in this, the paving companies, so take stock.
So is it,
Paving
is they're
materials.
intending that everybody has to pay a tax even if they're retaining their stormwater on the property?
To be determined.
I live downgrade, so.
They were not specific
Runoff.
until.
Hey, there you go. You get the- you collect the tax.
What's in it, they would not say. I think. they
Yeah, I don't
didn't
know a
want-
lot of, I've heard, again, I was told a little bit about it, but I didn't hear the details. and
Yes.
It,
They got enough from the public that was attending. So anyway, there is the court cases here.
Mhm.
Read them down. They're really, really interesting. And I can't say enough about this legal firm. There were 350 people there, I'd say, and I can tell you, they didn't miss one legal question. They had them all right down to the bottom. And then the template for order is here as well. So
These are great notes, Joe. Thanks for taking
Okay,
these. I
thank you.
appreciate that a
thank
lot.
you, Joe.
appreciate. It was interesting. I suggest you try to do this. There was a lot of potential for bumping elbows and learning from other communities. And all I can say is some people have it a lot worse than we do.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Want to pass that back down?
I had one question. What happened to the enforcement? We were talking about Superior Court up on, what's the name of that? What? Newberry Corner. Where the guy Raymond's,
Oh,
what's going on with that case?
what, is that Peck Road, or not Peck Road, Felicity Lane?
Felicity Lane.
I never went to Superior Court. That ended up with our corporation counsel, and we were following up on it. Basically, they were going back and forth with us, like, we'll get a site plan. They stopped work. So
Mhm.
work had ceased, and now they had to kind of get into the site plan process, because the way Jeremy was enforcing, because wetlands doesn't have really much teeth until we get that ordinance passed, for citations, he was using zoning citations because he didn't have any approvals to be on the site doing anything other than exploratory stuff for home building. So basically we're just going back and forth with his engineer and all this stuff, and got to the point where it kind of stalled, but then our corporation counsel passed away. And so we don't have one now. So we're kind of holding things until he gets back. But that's on my short list to send a letter from our corporation counsel, like requiring that plan
Okay.
from them.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I guess next is adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.